Hey guys, today I wanted to do a video on the UEFI BIOS on the ASUS Rampage IV Extreme motherboard with my 3930K. So here's basically a rundown on the advanced menu here. You could use your mouse and also the keyboard to scroll down, and select what you want to select and what you want to modify. So basically, right now we're in the extreme tweaker area of the motherboard, and you could see the very top is LN2 mode. It's disabled if you wanted to run LN2. The all-core target CPU turbo speed right now I have it at overclock. It's 4.6 gigahertz, which the stock I believe is 3.4 gigahertz. I believe. Don't quote me on that. Target DRAM speed I have at 1333 megahertz. My RAM is 1600 megahertz kit at 1.65 volts, but I wanted to run at 1.5 volts because I've heard on this motherboard anything over 1.65 volts is not recommended on this board. So at 1.5 volts I'll get 1333 stable. So at this overclock here, I'm pretty much 24/7 stable. I ran Prime 95 for a good 24 hours on this overclock, so it's pretty much rock solid. I really like it. And also temps are where, I wish I could get lower temps, but with the H100 I'm getting roughly about 72 degrees Celsius maxed out, so that's pretty good. Anything above that, I try to go to 4.7, but I had to really ramp up the volt on this particular chip, and in turn, it was stable, but in turn I would get really high temperatures at about 80 to 85 or so, roughly. Same thing with 4.8 gigahertz. I had to ramp up the voltage, and it was just getting too hot. So until I get proper water cooling, I'd be able to run at those speeds. So right now I'm content with 4.6. It's very, very fast. At 4, the highest I could overclock was 4.4 gigahertz without modifying the voltage. So at stock voltage I was able to get 4.4, which is awesome. But once I went to 4.5, I had to ramp up the voltage a little bit, and then at 4.6, again a little bit more on the voltage, which I'll show you in a minute what I did. So here, I'm sure you guys have seen, maybe not seen overclocking tutorials. This is not going to be no overclocking tutorial. Sort of, not really. It's just going to show you what specifications I have here that I set to get my chip to where it's at right now. So you have here your load normal OC profile, which if you want to load that you can. I'm not going to load any of that, but basically all of these right here you could pretty much get an OC right out of the gate, but I come to find a couple of these it wasn't stable whatsoever. It wouldn't even boot, so I didn't even mess around with this stuff. So you start off here, the AI overclocking tuner. I set to manual. You could set it to auto. XMP profile, and I just set it to manual. CPU level up, I have that disabled. My beat clock or base clock frequency I have at 100 megahertz. CPU strap, same thing, basically it's the base clock at 100 megahertz. Clock gen full reset, I have that enabled. Turbo ratio, it's basically by all cores, can be adjusted in the OS, or per core cannot be adjusted in the operating system, so I have it on all cores. Basically, this is your CPU multiplier, and I have it at 46 to give me the 4.6 gigahertz. CPU clock gen filter, I have that enabled. It says basically may help maximize CPU overclocking when enabled. My memory frequency, I have at 1333, but you can see all the different settings here. So 1333. Extreme tweaking, I have that enabled. EPU power saving mode, I have that disabled. Here you have CPU performance settings. The CPU ratio, I have that on auto. Enhanced Intel speed step technology, I have that enabled because I did want, at idle, I wanted my overclock to basically go down to about 1200 megahertz and only use what I needed to use. Basically, you know, it goes from 1200, 1800, all the way to 4600 whenever I boost up my, whenever I use more of the CPU. Turbo mode, I have that enabled, and power limit control, I have that on auto. So there's that. The Dram timing control, basically I have all this set to auto. I didn't want to mess with it, just basically just what the motherboard set it at, all the timings and all that. I haven't really tweaked with it whatsoever until I get a really good set of RAM. Then I'll mess with this. You know, right now I have X79 Corsair, and I'm not too happy with them, but you know, they've been good. I had this set for quite a while now, but until I get a better set of RAM, then I'll mess around with all that stuff. This right here, the GG Plus power control. Now here's where it gets pretty cool. The low light calibration, I have this set to high. Okay, now and you can have that on auto, regular, medium, high, ultra high, or extreme. Basically on medium, everyone says that this is the, you know, around about where it's the best to be for an overclock. But basically when I have that set to medium, let's just say I set my voltage to 1.4. In the OS it would say like 1.4, 1.42, and then when it went under load, it would drop down to probably, let's just say, like 1.36. So under load, it would drop down 1.36. So basically, you would have it at 1.36. So if you needed more, if you wanted that 1.4, you wouldn't have that constantly at load, and that's where you want it to be. Whatever you set it at, that's where you want it to be at under load. So on high, when it's at 1.4, it would stay about 1.4, and it might even go up to like 1.41. So basically, it's at what you set it at, just about. Anything above that, like ultra, it's going to go even higher. 1.4 go to like 1.44, and on extreme, it would just almost a full tenth. So I have that on high. My CPU current capability, I have that at 120%. The voltage frequency, I have that on auto. VRM over temperature protection, I have that on auto. The CPU power duty control, I have that set at T-probe. V-core max volt control, 7 volts. I have the CPU power phase control, I have that on optimized. Basically on this you have an auto, standard, optimized, or extreme. Basically all the phase controls on extreme, they'd be on all the time. All the phases would be on all the time, but it create more heat. And on optimized, it's not on all the time, just when it needs to be. The spread spectrum, I have it disabled. CPU for boot up voltage, basically. Let's just say you just needed to boot up into the OS and you needed a little bit more volts just to boot up, you could set it up here. Low light calibration, I have that on regular for my CPU, the VCCSA. The current stability on that, I have that at 120%. Fixed frequency, I have that at 300. The CPU VC boot up voltage on auto. CPU VTT switching frequency, I have that on auto. The CPU VTT over current protection on auto. The Dram AD current capability, 120%. So on and so forth. Optimize, 120%. The Dram CD power phase control optimized, and the PCH 1.1 volts switching frequency, I have that on auto. So you can see the settings I have here on the GG Plus power control and what I did. GPU dim post, it shows which one you want it to post at. I have two GTX 570 HD 2.5 GB versions. You can see that there, and which lanes I have now. Both of them at 16x. Dim post, you can see my RAM there. Extreme OV, I have that disabled. The block skew, I have that on auto. And this is where it gets good here. This is the voltages I can tweak with here. So I have my CPU B core voltage set to manual mode. You can set that on manual, or you can set it on offset. And you can see I have my V core at 1.355. And my VTT, I have that at 1.1. My second VTT voltage, I have that at 1.05099, which is stock. And my VCCA voltage, I have in manual mode, and I have that at 1.1. My RAM, basically on both banks, I believe, this is what that means, both channels, both banks at 1.5 volts. My CPU Pll voltage at 1.8, which is stock. And a PCH 1.1 voltage set at 1.1, which is stock. VTT DDR voltage, I've got an auto on both banks. The CPU speed spectrum set on auto. PCIe spread spectrum at auto. And then here you have CPU Tweaker's Paradise memory, PCH chipset, and VGA. It's all Tweaker's Paradise. I didn't mess with any of these settings, so everything's set on auto. I can show you what all that is. See all these tweaks you could do. It's just unreal. No idea what that stuff is. Again, you can see all this craziness, and the VGA. Crazy stuff here, guys. All that did not mess with. Everything's on auto. So basically that's everything here on the extreme tweaker area portion of it. You can go to the main here, which tells you, basic BIOS information. Oh, I'm sorry. There's the stock. 3.2 gigahertz is the stock. And I went up to 4.6. There we go. Advanced CPU configuration. I have the Intel Adaptive Thermal Monitor enabled. Hyper-threading is enabled. So 6 cores, 12 threads. Active processing cores. All my cores are active. Limit CPU ID maximum. I have that disabled. Executive disabled bit. I have that enabled. Hardware prefetcher. I have that enabled. Adjacent cache line prefetch enabled. Intel virtualization technology enabled. CPU power management configuration. I have all this enabled. Basically, the CPU CE1E, the C3, the C6, the C7, speed step technology. I have that all enabled. And that's that with the main, the advanced. The monitor have anti-search support. I have that disabled. Voltage monitor. You can see all my voltages that I have here. Temperature monitor. You can see my CPU temperature, motherboard temperature, all the temperatures on the motherboard, and so on and so forth. My fan speeds, as you can see there. The fan speed control, basically I have that set at turbo. And the boot, you can see basically on the boot I did not mess with except for what I wanted to boot first, which is my SSD, so on and so forth. Tool, the ASUS Easy Flash 2 utility. I'll show you what that is. Brings you up to this screen basically. Here you could flash your BIOS. Pretty easy stuff. Let's go back. ASUS speed information. Basically it's all my DIMM slots. ASUS or ASUS, whichever you pronounce it. Sorry if I didn't pronounce it correctly, guys. Basically here you can set up your profiles, and I have different profiles here set up. I have a 4.5 OC, 4.6, 4.7, a stock OC, and a 4.8 OC. BIOS flashback. You could force the BIOS to boot, copy BIOS 1 to BIOS 2, go button profile. Basically, when I push the go button, I could set up a OC profile, like on my motherboard. Let's just say it crashes and I wanted to boot up to a different profile. I could set that up here. So basically, I could set that up to boot up to this particular overclocker profile. So that's basically what that. Let's go to the, I'll show you guys the easy mode right here. So we were in advanced, now when they're easy, and I could set, you can see all my temperatures here, the voltages and span speeds. So the boot priority, this is all cool stuff, you know, it's all with the mouse you could use, stuff like that. So that's that pretty much. This is all pretty cool stuff, it tells you the time. Things like that. So let's just go back to advanced mode. And so that's basically it, guys. That's basically what I have for my settings again, for my overclock that I set at on the ASUS Rampage IV Extreme. I've been messing with this for a while, guys. You know, it took me a while to get a good stable overclock on this. You know, overclocking is you know, to do a proper overclock, it takes time. You know, because every chip is different. You know what I mean? You could go online and you could get people's basic, you know, things that they set on their BIOS to see if you could get this particular overclock with these particular settings. But again, you know, every chip's different. Every chip, you know, you can get 4.6 gigahertz on stock voltage. Who knows? You know what I mean? But people get 4.6 gigahertz at 1.4, 1.45 volts, which is pretty high. But I'm lucky enough to get a 4.6 gigahertz at 1.355 volts. You know, pretty much stable. It's awesome. I'm very happy with that. You know, it's pretty low voltage, and it's not going to kill too much my CPU over time, because I've heard at 1.4 to 1.5 volts, it starts to more rapidly degrade the processor's life. At 1.5, it even gets to be much faster to degrade the processor's life. You know, it's a very expensive machine that I have here, and I don't want to, like, you know, kill the processor quick, you know, or the motherboard. I plan to have this set up for a long time. You know, I'm a PC enthusiast, just like a lot of you guys out there, and we always want to get the latest and greatest and fastest stuff, you know. I was fortunate enough to finally get something that I always wanted, you know. I've always been a big AMD fan. I haven't had an Intel-based machine for a while, since back in the dual-core, you know, quad-core days, you know, before Sandy Bridge. That was right around the last time I had Intel machine, and then I went to Phenom, you know, AMD. So I'm really proud of myself that I was able to get a really good, you know, system from Intel, you know, the 2011 socket, you know, skip Sandy Ivy Bridge and went on to the big boys. So really proud of myself that that worked really hard. It was a lot of money, but it's a very, very fast machine. If you guys are planning to go with, if you guys were thinking about going with Intel, if you guys are AMD fans or whatever, you know, if you guys want to go with Sandy or Ivy Bridge, my thoughts on that are, if you already have a Sandy Bridge based machine, I'd say just stick with that. If you're going to go to build a whole new machine and you want to go Intel mid-level, of course go ahead and get Ivy Bridge. You know, might as well, you know, because it is the latest stuff. You know, even though Sandy Bridge is great, but Ivy Bridge will have, you know, little things here and there with more technology that it has. But again, it's a mid-level Intel machine. If you guys want to step up to a high-end machine, then 2011 is the way to go. X79 chipset. But if you guys are sticking with, let's just say, a gaming machine, Ivy Bridge or Sandy Bridge is the way to go. That's the perfect gaming machine. if you have the money to spend. But if you want a low budget, low cost game machine, I'd stay with, I'd get AMD Phenom. That's what I would get. But the Phenoms now are you know, getting extremely hard to find those processors now, you know, because of the push of the Bulldozer. They're getting rid of the Phenom 2s. So, you know, Bulldozer, that sucks that it was a huge fail, but you know, it's still a good chip, you know, all in all. You know, it's still a pretty good chip, you know, it's still, you know, does good gaming. You know, I have buddies out there that have that 8150 Bulldozer chip and a 7970. It rocks as a game machine. It plays every single game out there perfect. You know what I mean? And it was a low, you know, that's kind of high end, but you guys know what I mean. You know, it's still a good chip. It's still good for gaming. It's still good for everyday computing. But again, guys, if you guys want to go and step up to 2011, it's more so for like multimedia design, video editing, stuff like that. Really high computing stuff, you know, in layman's terms. But if it's just going for gaming, stick with the mid-level, you know, Sandy or Ivy or AMD. So that's what I recommend, guys. But that's basically it, guys. I've been ranting along a lot, talking blah blah blah. I talk too much, guys. But thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions on any of this stuff here that I showed you, on any of this, dude, feel free to you know, drop me a line, give me a thumbs up, guys. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for watching.